Hey everybody, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen leading the movement for movement and the Autism Fitness methodology, the PAC profile, and of course bringing you this next edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, where I take a concept, a strategy, something that we use in autism fitness programming for the autism and neurodivergent population of all ages and ability levels, and encapsulate it so that you can bring it to your own fitness adapted PE programs wherever and whenever fitness is being performed. So, if there is, of course, a topic that you would like me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, leave that in the comments below. And definitely, if this has helped you out or provided some type of insight that guides your programming into the upper echelons of awesome, then leave that in the comments below, because I'd love to know how it is helping you and the life skill athletes that you serve. Before we get started, please definitely subscribe, and share these videos with someone for whom they might make a difference. In this Autism Fitness Tuesday training, we are going to be discussing effective communication strategies that you may not have thought about with respect to exercise and fitness programming, and how we can utilize those both to the advantage of us as coaches, but more importantly to the advantage of our athletes being able to understand, appreciate, and perform the exercise to the best of their current ability. Number one is labeling the exercise. So specificity reigns supreme when we're talking about movement. One of the most common mistakes that I hear and see often at the same time is using generalities and being far too vague with information. So saying over there, or do it this way, or to this side, or a little more up, when we're giving verbal directional cues that are unspecific and untargeted for anybody. Now, this extends beyond the neurodivergent population and well into the stratosphere of the neurotypical population as well. The more concise and the more specific we are with directions, typically the better the athlete is able to work off of those cues. However, if we are general, the this, that, not this, not that, it can become confusing because there's much too broad an amount of information that can be interpreted. We want to leave the interpretation as narrow as possible because we want the athlete to understand what we are coaching them to do as quickly and efficiently as possible. So if we're adding way too much information, or we're not giving enough of a cue or specific enough of a cue for that athlete, they may become confused, overwhelmed, or simply will not be performing the exercise as best as they possibly can. So again, specificity, whether verbal or whether a mirror or model prompt, and especially with labeling the exercise. I'll give a real world example. So in autism fitness programming, we have 3 different medicine ball throws that we use for our power development. Now, if I were to say to one of my athletes, do a throw, and they start doing overhead throws, and in my head I'm thinking I want them to do push throws, how are they supposed to know which throw I wanted them to do? I have to be specific and label that particular medicine ball throw so that the athlete is crystal clear about what the expectation for performing said exercise actually is. If I just leave it up to them, which is okay in certain circumstances, so I may ask, what type of throw do you want to do? Or even better, do you want to do push throws first or overhead throws first? And they give me an answer that decides on one of those choices, then great, we have specificity. The reason we want to be careful and we want to be considerate and consistent in labeling the exercises is we want our athlete to develop a working memory of what that exercise is called and then how to perform it. So being able to differentiate a push throw from an overhead throw from a scoop throw is important because it builds that lexicon, and it also gives an athlete a more accurate interpretation of what we are asking them to do or what they are choosing to do from that field of 2 or 3 different exercises. So labeling and specificity is number 1. Second communication strategy is feedback and when to give it. In autism fitness programming, we discuss behavior-specific praise and behavior-specific feedback, and it's important to, even I would say critical, to give that information at particular times while the athlete is performing that overhead press or that sandbag heavy carry or that squat. And informational overload typically happens when we are giving the athlete the information up front versus as they're actually performing the exercise. So the communication and processing gap lies in where and when we are delivering the information or the feedback to that athlete. So number 2 is going to be, of course, as just described, the feedback and how much language, and just as importantly, when we are providing that language or that feedback for that particular athlete. With behavior-specific praise, we are initiating the feedback, giving the athlete positive feedback on what they are doing correctly while they are doing it and immediately after they are doing it. So they come into contact not only with something that is reinforcing, but it also buffers the teaching and the training for that athlete as well. So that feedback needs to happen at certain times in order for it to be as effective as possible. Third item in communication is going to be the way that we prompt and cue different exercises when we're not explaining them. So if we are using a mirror prompt for an athlete, so we're standing in front of that athlete and doing an overhead press, or we're standing to the side of that athlete and doing a squat. Number 1 here, the position that we are in when we provide that mirror prompt. So some exercises are much better shown from the side rather directly in front of an athlete. In fact, for many of our athletes, having direct eye line towards a coach could be overwhelming. It could be visual overstimulation. So oftentimes it makes the most sense to stand slightly askew or a little bit away from the athlete so that they can see from an angle, that was the word I was looking for, from an angle exactly what we want them to do. So for example, if I'm coming back to that push throw, I don't want to stand in front of an athlete necessarily and do the push throw at them if I have no intention to release the ball or for them to catch the ball. I probably want to stand to the side and show how the push throw is performed before I actively integrate the athlete into the throwing and catching portion or the actual live practice. So how we orient ourselves when we're doing some type of mirror or demonstrational prompt is going to be a big deal because we have to take it into consideration what that athlete's visual field is like, what might be overwhelming for them, what might be underwhelming or not provide enough information to that athlete in order for that exercise and the movement pattern to make sense so that they can process it and so that they can repeat it to the best of their current ability. So when we are providing some type of non verbal prompt or cue or instruction. It's very important that we have a good sense of our own spacing, where we need to place ourselves in order for the athlete to best learn the movement so that they can replicate it, again, to their current best level of participation. It doesn't mean that automatically the athlete is going to be completely independent with the exercise, although that might be the case, but we're not going to know unless we figure out where we need to be in order to give them the best perspective on that particular exercise. And of course, it can differ from exercise to exercise, as explained through that medicine ball push throw versus an overhead press. Typically with an overhead press, we can stand a couple feet away from the athlete and do that mirror prompt, and the athlete can follow along to the best of their ability and go through that full range of motion, controlled on the way down. Great, great, great. But not every exercise is going to function in that capacity. So to recap, communication, number one, is not just spoken, right? It's not always just our verbal cues. When it is, we want to be highly specified. So that's number one. Number two, the way that we provide feedback. So behavior-specific praise and feedback on what the athlete did correctly, when and where that is appropriate and effective, is going to be an important factor in the athlete being able to replicate that exercise to the best of their physical ability, and being able to discriminate between going really fast and going really slow may have everything to do with the feedback that we are giving them. And of course, number three is going to be situational prompting to the exercise. Where are we standing, and how are we orienting ourselves towards the athlete so that they have the best view of us providing the demonstration of that exercise, so that they can then go and practice it. And all of this is encompassed in our label, demo, do, and cue. Magical, it's not magical, it's science and practice, and it works really, really well. Our label, demo, do, and cue strategy that we use in autism fitness programming. So I hope that these are 3 communication and cueing strategies that have been helpful for you, or that give you an opportunity to think about how you're running your own programs and how you're coaching your own athletes as well. If this has been helpful for you, and if there's some insight that you've gained from it, definitely leave a comment below. I'd love to see it. And if there's a topic you'd like me to cover in the future, you can leave that down there also. And of course, if you're ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro anywhere in the world, you can head on over to autismfitness.com, learn more, download the syllabus, and then I will see you in one of the upcoming future virtual full-day practicals where you get the hands-on, feet-on, brains-on training that you and your neurodivergent athletes deserve. I'm Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness, leading the movement for movement. This has been another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training. Thanks for watching.